there was a recent adjustment to the population of China, right? Because when the way I understand it is when the way the Chinese government does census on their population is when the doctor, there's no birth certificates. So the way I understand it is when the doctor comes to first give a child his vaccinations, that's one way. Or when a child gets admitted to primary school, that's another way. That's usually not until they're like 4 or 5, maybe. Is that correct? Or are you aware of?
Well, I know that the Chinese population data has been massaged by so many people
right. Well,
for so long.
I'm sure the education system, they get subsidized by the government, right? So they want to inflate that number of people that they have to earn more money.
There was once, I think that was in 2013, there was an effort by the Ministry of Public Security to kind of to scrub their population data. So they organized 500,000 police across the country to conduct, they went through the population data. They found 350 million fake IDs from their 1.3 billion population database over 48 hours. It was an effort. Within 2 days, they deployed 500,000 policemen across the country to scrub the data. They found 350 million fake IDs out of 1.3 billion people. And this was actually documented. This whole effort was actually on the website of the Ministry of Public Security. They later took it down because it was too much information, because that's, a quarter of China's population, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the 0.3, right, of the 1.3 billion.
20, yeah. So that was that. And also in 2013, if you look at the official census data, China had, I think it was 260 million kids or children, school-age children, 260 million. However, if you look at, going to your point about vaccines, according to vaccine data, only 100 million children from 8 months old to 16 years old had vaccination. Or
how many?
100 million.
100 million.
So assuming it was an annual event, so they were saying that there's this huge discrepancy, right? You had 260 million students, but you only have 100 million children from 8 months old to 16 years old. Not everyone in this bracket is student, because the 8-month-old doesn't go to school. Mm-hmm. So how could you have so fewer children, getting vaccines when you have so many students? Well, the answer is the local governments inflate their student population to get funding from the central government.
Right.
So, but if you look at the discrepancies, it's huge. It's like 100 million versus 260 million. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's why China's population data, the census data, is just convoluted.
Yeah, and I'm sure it takes a while for it to catch up, right? Because it's going to have, if the census data if they're taking census data on people after they enter school, I'm not sure when they typically do it. Like, do they do it at the beginning? Do they do it?
Well, supposedly when a kid is born, you need to register, with the local police bureau, so that you get an ID, right? You get a household ID. Like so here we have a social security number.
Right.
There you get an ID. So the kid is in the system, right? And then you get vaccinations, stuff like that. But the person should exist in the system. But birth certificates can be bought. Hospitals sell birth certificates for profit. Doctors sell that. You could get fake IDs.
Why would they do this? Why would people do this?
To buy real estate. Sometimes to get a fake, just to have a fake ID, to buy real estate. Or for example, my kid is born in a rural area, right? And I want my kid to be able to go to school in Beijing or Shanghai, in the large cities. But I can't go there because of this household registration system. Like, you can't move around to go to school in another city if you are in this local. So what I want to do is buy a fake ID for my kid in Shanghai or Beijing, a fake ID, so that later when he or she is older, he or she can go to school there.
Wow.
If I have the money, all you need is money.
What is the penalty for being busted for doing this?
If everyone is doing it, who are you going to punish?
So, yeah, you're right. That's a lot of people.
Right? And usually the people who are doing this are the ones with money. And they use money to take care of everything.
How many fake IDs did you say that
There's
they found?
a lot.
You said it was a couple 100 million?
350 million.
Jesus.
Out of 1.3 billion people.
That is bananas. That if that's happening to some degree at that level, and I'm sure you can't, I mean, that takes a long time to make a 300 million fake IDs. That is a symptom of a very deep rot within.
That 350 million does not include people who have died and whose IDs still exist in the system. Those are only fake IDs, meaning the person never exists, or duplicate IDs, I should say. Mm-hmm. You have one person having two IDs.
Sure.
That's duplicate IDs. But this does not include people who are 150 years old who are still in the system and the children are still collecting social benefits.
Right.
Yeah. Or people who have migrated to U.S. and who still getting benefits in China.
Mm. Yeah. There's the fact that exists. I mean, that's a huge problem and a symptom to a huge institutional problem. Like, why would they not allow somebody born in a rural area to go work in a metropolitan area or in a different city?
Well, because if that happens, then no one wants to live in the rural area, right? I mean, that's the whole quote unquote beauty of communism from the perspective of the CCP leaders. They control where everyone lives. They control how much money you make. They control what job you do. They control everything. In the old days, they even control who you date, who you marry. They control every aspect of people's life.
Steve, I want some stats on Chinese healthcare, mortality rate, cancer rates, obesity, compared to the U.S.
Chinese probably do better in obesity, but cancer...
Cancer's pretty bad.
It's very bad.
New cancer cases, China is expected to have approximately 4.8 million new cancer cases, while the U.S. is expected to have around 2.3 million. But is the population is what in China?
You asked me. Officially, 1.4 billion.
Oh, so it's realistically 1 billion, right?
Definitely under 1 billion.
It's under 1 billion. But is it close to a billion, you think? Is it close under or is it far under?
Far under.
How far?
You are ready for the number?
Yes.
At one point, I projected under 400 million.
What?
500 million. Under 500 million.
Under 500 million. Mm-hmm. So you think that they have a very similar population to the United States and China?
Yes. Wow. There's 1 billion people missing.
And this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning or earlier in the podcast with all of the fake IDs and all of this stuff being found out.
Yeah, there's possibly 1 billion people missing. It's not a demographic question, Danny. It's a mathematical question. Let me ask you. It takes a couple to have 2 children to replace themselves, right? Think about it.
Yes, 2 children.
If every couple produces 2 children.
The population stinks level.
Right. So do you know how many children does every woman needs to have in her lifetime in order to triple its population in 50 years?
To triple its population in 50 years, you need to have what? Let me guess. I'm terrible at math.
I'll give you the answer because I asked AI. It's a crazy mathematical. If a country needs to triple or grow its population by 2.5 times. Let's just say 2.5 times.
Okay.
Over a span of 50 years.
5 kids?
Each woman, you're right, each woman needs to give birth on average between 4.5 to 5.5 children.
Wow.
Okay. Now, China grew its population officially from 1950. That's when the CCP took over to control. Okay, China's population in 1950 was about 500 million. In the year 2000, 50 years later, China's population was about 1.27 billion. Okay, so it grew 2.5 times, right? From 500 million to 1.27 billion. That's 2.5 times over 50 years. Chinese women did not have, on average, have 5 children because of the one-child policy.
Yes.
Because of the Great Famine. Because of the Great Famine, tens of millions of people died. Because of Cultural Revolution. So China, from one political movement to another, and then to almost 4 decades of single-child policy, there's no way Chinese women had 5 kids. Actually, the average fertility rate for each woman was 1.7 for the 30 year from 1990 to 2020. Okay, Chinese average fertility rate is probably 2 from the 50 years. So it's a mathematical question. There's no way Chinese women gave birth to 5 kids from the time the CCP took control to year 2000. That's my argument number 1.
Okay.
So there's no way China could have reached 1.27 billion people by the year 2000.
Right.
Okay?
Then why did they implement the one-child policy in the first place?
They thought they have too many people.
Did they really think they had too many people, or were they just trying to project?
I think the country was on the brink of bankruptcy. They could not afford to raise that many people.
Okay.
And then the second question, that was a mathematical question. And anyone who's in statistics can calculate that. Second question is a comparative study. India in 1990 had a population of 900 million, or about 900 million, which is only 200 million under China's population of 1.1 million, or 1.1 billion.
In 1990?
1990.
Okay.
There were only 200 million people apart.
Yes.
Within 20%.
Okay.
Okay. Now, over the next 30 years, China's fertility rate, according to the government, is 1.7, meaning every woman gives birth or gave birth to 1.7 kids. India's fertility rate is double that, is over 3. Okay? So how could, 30 years later, so now we're in 2020, how could China still have more people than India?
Right. They wouldn't. India would pass them.
Mathematically, it's impossible. So I asked AI, how many people should China have, assuming their fertility rate is correct in the year 2020? Right? AI gave me 900 million.
Wow.
900 million. And then now the 1.7 fertility rate was overstated. That's the official number. So experts believe China's real fertility rate during the 30 year was 1.3.
Right, with the famine issues, with the pollution,
and then the one-child policy.
And the one-child policy combined would be devastating for birth rate.
Yeah. So the official. So if I applied the real fertility rate of 1.3, China's population in the year 2020 was only 700 million. 700 million. Okay?
That's wild.
It's a mathematical question.
And you think the government is not aware of this? Or you think they have to be, right?
I think China's population never reached 1.4 billion. In fact, it probably never reached 1 billion. Because how could you? You have 30, it takes a couple to have 2 children to keep the population flat.
Sure, exactly.
You have single child policy for 3 decades and more. How could you grow how could your population grow so much? I mean, the whole world has been fooled. I mean, it's a simple mathematical question.
I would be curious to hear what the conventional answer would be to something like this, right? Like, how would somebody explain this away? Is this question not being asked?
I don't know.
I
raised the question. Well, so that's one question. So how many people did China have before COVID? Okay, my answer is about 800 million, somewhere around 800 million.
Steve, you got ChatGPT handy? Okay.
And then the next question is how many people died during the pandemic in China?
In China.
It's not the official 120,000. China's official COVID casualty is 120,000. Okay, that's less than the 1.2 million in the U.S. We had the worldwide casualty was 7 million. I think the U.S. has the bulk of it.
Yeah,
1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you look at it, China's real death during the pandemic is in the hundreds of millions.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Actually,
what is the population split between elderly and young people?
I mean, it's older. The average age is old. It's 40 something. Okay. Yeah. But someone asked Grok 3 this question, a Chinese, and said, please, tell me how many people, please estimate how many people died during COVID in China. And Grok 3 built a reasoning model, collected economic data, consumption data, and estimated that the number of population that got shed during the 3 year from 2020 to 2022 was between 150 million and 250 million.
And where did it pull this information from?
Official data.
Official data.
Yeah. And that doesn't include the casualties that we continue to see from 2020 until now. People are still dying. And I have, how many, the Chinese government has suspended the data on its funeral industry. It stopped publishing statistics on its funeral burial industry. And yet we've seen local governments building so many crematoriums and funeral homes. There was one province that I saw, which one was that? I think maybe Shanxi, was it Shanxi? But in one of the provinces, it had, I think, about 40, it was a population with, I think, maybe 30 million people. It was not a big province. It had about 40, or estimate to have under 50 crematoriums and funeral homes. They're now building 80 additional. So if you didn't have that kind of death, why would you double or triple?
Right. Unless business was booming.
Right.
Wow.
So it's a mind-boggling topic. I mean, I didn't feel good when I did my program on that because I could accept that China has 800 million people, but no matter how I look at it, if hundreds of millions of people died, that brings China's population from 800 million down to like 500 million or even lower.